Greetings, grapplers. Welcome to the Takedown Confidence Summit. I'm your host, Larry Keith, and with me today is Professor Keith Owen. Professor Keith Owen lives in Boise, Idaho, and is a 4th degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under legendary 8th degree Gracie black belt Professor Pedro Sauer. So welcome to the event, Professor Owen. It's a pleasure to have you here with us.
Thank you, Larry. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I know your time is valuable, so I want to get right into our questions. So the first question is, just tell us about your prior martial arts experience before you got connected with BJJ.
Well, I'm going to tell you this, and I'm going to be truthful. I started taking martial arts because I saw The Karate Kid back in 1984, I think it was. And I was like 15 or 16 years old, and I'm watching this movie, and he crane kicked that guy in the head, and I went, I need to take martial arts. So I immediately I went out the very next day and signed up for Kempo karate, and I don't know, I went like 4 months in Kempo karate and things were going great. I was excited, and then the instructor left and he took my money with him, and so then I didn't have anybody to train with, and I'm like, wow. And so I found I found an instructor, and his name is Gene Starr, and I started taking lessons with him, and I spent about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years taking kung fu lessons with him, and got my black belt from him. And then I went on, after Gene Starr, I met a man named Joseph Cowles. And Joseph Cowles lived in Twin Falls, Idaho, where I'm from, where I grew up. And Joe was a former student of the late Bruce Lee back in the day in Seattle. And Joe used to be a postman. And he tells me the story where he was walking down the street and he saw a flyer for a thing called Kung Fu, and he didn't know what Kung Fu was, right? I think it was Gung Fu was what it was. And so he went down in this church, down in the basement of this church, and he saw this little, he called it little Chinese guy teaching martial arts. And he just sat there and watched this guy, and this guy was amazing. And he goes, wow, I would like to learn this. So Joe started taking lessons from Bruce Lee. And that's who was giving the lessons. And Joe, we went about 3 or 4 years with Bruce Lee training with him, and it was non-classical Wing Chun Kung Fu, a lot of trapping and things like that, pre-Jeet Kune Do. And then Bruce Lee went off to California and started Jeet Kune Do proper. And Joe moved, Joe stayed in Seattle for a long time and then moved to Twin Falls, Idaho, and retired. And I was, I'm telling you, I was fortunate enough to meet Joe Cowles. And I had a martial arts school there in Twin Falls. And he would come 2 times a week to my school personally. And me and another guy were working with him, and we were his students. And so we spent, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, and we got our black sashes from Joe. And man, I have a lot of awesome Bruce Lee stories that Joe has taught me. Unfortunately, Joe has passed on, but his memory still remains. And so I had 2 black belts before I started jiu-jitsu.
I think that, that's a very unique path, but it's similar, to a lot of us. We started off in some other kind of martial arts, be it, we're watching Bruce Lee movies or watching Karate Kid or something right. Inspired us. And then we find our way to that martial arts. And then from there to jiu-jitsu. So that brings me to the next question. How did you find your way to BJJ?
Well, the word story. I had a martial arts school, but I also did TV sales on the side because the school I was starting out in this school, and I had to work 2 jobs to make it work. And I was in TV sales. So I would contact businesses and, sell them advertising. And one day the TV station told me to take a tape. You know what I'm talking about? One of those tape, not a VCR tape. That's what I'm trying to say. Take a VCR tape to a client. He wasn't my client. Okay, so these people weren't my clients. I was just dropping this tape off, and it was called, the place in Twin Falls was called Mel Qually's Electronics. I don't know if it's there anymore, but I walk into Mel Qually's and I've got this tape in my hand, and I just have to drop it off, and I'm out of there. So I walk up to the counter and I put this tape on the counter, and this guy walks up to me, and I didn't know who this guy was. I didn't know this dude, and he walks up to me and he starts talking to me and everything. I go, hey, I got to deliver this tape, blah blah blah, and then he looks at me and he goes, have you ever heard of the Gracies? And just so happens that I had been reading Black Belt magazine, and they did all these stories on the Gracies, if you remember back in the day, where all the Gracies were doing their challenge fighting. And I was a black belt already, and I'm like, looking at this going, holy crud, I'd sure like to do this jujitsu. But the only place to do jujitsu was in California at the time that I could find, and the internet wasn't that popular at the time. So it was just kind of hard to find anything. So he looks at me straight in the eye, dude, I don't even know. And goes, hey, have you ever heard of the Gracies? And I go, well, yeah, I've heard of the Gracies. He goes, hey, I have this tape. You want to watch it? They're fighting people. And I went, well, heck yeah, I want to watch this tape because I'd heard of them, right? And since it was an electronic store, he takes it over and we watch, puts it in the VCR at the time. That's how long ago it was, in the VCR. And we start watching, and the Gracies are just beating up on all these karate guys, and I'm like, wow, this is really cool. I was like, I'm sitting there, it's like freaking me out. Like, I can't believe this dude I don't even know. So anyway, I go, and his name is Dean, this guy. And I go, hey Dean, I want to do jujitsu. And I go, if I were to go to California and start learning it, would you be partners with me? And we start working on it together. And he goes, yeah, I want to learn it too, right? So that's what we started doing. And I looked around, and there wasn't much going on. And I found Master Sauer. He was Professor Sauer at the time, in Orem, Utah, Orem, Salt Lake, one of those places. It was called Bolin Levin Insurance, was where he was teaching out of the back of this. They had this garage thing, and he was teaching out of the back of it back in like 94, I think it was 93 or something like that. And so I go, holy crud, there's a jiu-jitsu guy in Utah. So I started going down there and spending time, and Dean would come with me, and we just started training. And we hooked up with Master Sauer, and he's such a kind man, nice man, took us right in, no problem. And 30 years later, I'm still going strong. Dean, by the way, got a black belt as well as I did from Master Sauer too. Unfortunately, Dean died of cancer, but he got his black belt right before he died. And he was training like all the way up to his death, really. And unfortunately, it was skin cancer. And so unfortunately he passed away. But man, if you got to pass away, at least get a black belt in jiu-jitsu. So, so that was really, that was a really good thing that he got his black belt. And that's how I got started in jiu-jitsu. And I got the bug, and I've never quit. There's hardly a day that I don't want to do jiu-jitsu. Some days there's a once or twice, maybe every 6 months, where I really don't care for jiu-jitsu, but most of the time I just like it. And it's kind of a great addiction for me. And it's taken me all across the world now, paid my bills, got me a new car. I mean, it's awesome. I'm sorry, I'm so excited now just talking about jiu-jitsu. So
that's good. Yeah. And I remember when, Master Pedro Sauer, when he was one of the first people I remember that was kind of networking and building an affiliation back in the day. I think he had a couple of affiliates here in Oregon back when there was nobody here for me to train with. We had to either travel or go to seminars and that type of thing. And so, but I remember he was promoting some people here in Oregon and kind of, taking them under his wing back in the day. So he's been around forever. And I think a pioneer in affiliates, like having affiliate schools.
And I really feel too that Master Sauer, and I know he's my instructor and everything. He is literally one of the greatest jiu-jitsu instructors in the world. I mean, this guy, he makes everything so simple, and it's unique. I don't see many of the moves that he teaches that, I don't see it on YouTube and stuff like that. And he's taught me so much. And the cool thing is, people look at me and go, wow, you're such a good instructor. Yeah, I'm a cheap copy of Pedro Sauer. I've just stolen his material and was fortunate enough to be able to teach it. So he's a great man. And now I'm on the Pedro Sauer board of directors now. So for his association, I'm one of the founding board members of the new association just this year, as a matter of fact. So he was kind enough to ask me to be on the board, and we've been restructuring the board and making it even better. And he has a ton of affiliates. I can't, but all over the world. So he's his association is really growing strong, and I'm just glad to be a part of it.
Yeah, he's been at it for a long time. That's cool that you're, on the board like that too. Shows, your time and dedication that's been put into it has been recognized, which is important too, which is a good testament to, him, and building that culture. So that's a good thing. And these guys like him, he's an 8th degree, and I train under Master Carlos Machado, who's an 8th degree. Those guys, I mean, we're standing.
He's a great man too.
We're standing on the shoulders of giants, really, and like you said, they do have this this greater depth of knowledge that I know when we go to seminars with Master Carlos, you think you know a technique, right? So something basic like a scissor sweep, and then all of a sudden they do something that they show you this little tweak on it, and you're like, oh my goodness, it's like my world has changed right now. So just from one little thing, it's awesome. Yeah, and I've watched a lot of videos with Master Pedro. So I mean, again, I think he's fantastic too. All those guys are those guys that have been around since the beginning. So let's talk about speaking of teaching, but let's talk about your approach and your methodology for learning and teaching jiu-jitsu. So, how you approach your learning process, and then how you also approach your teaching process.
Sure. I want to start out by saying I believe personally that self-defense jiu-jitsu needs to come before the sport jiu-jitsu aspect of it. I believe that people who come into your school are after self-defense. They're not coming in there to be world champion jiu-jitsu competitors. They really just want to defend themselves. And I feel that our job as jiu-jitsu instructors is to teach people literally how to defend themselves, so that if they quit or they get into a fight, that they can defend themselves against punches, especially. So, and then after that, there seems to be two camps, man. There's like self-defense camp, and then there's the tournament camp. And I am in both camps. I visit both camps regularly because my students want to do competition too. So it's not out of the realm for me to do a lot of tournament kind of style jiu-jitsu. So I like to know both. And but I really believe starting out that self-defense is super important, and all of my students have to learn the self-defense aspect to defend against punches before they learn the tournament style of jiu-jitsu. I can't say that for everybody. People get all into the tournament and they don't do self-defense. I think you're doing disservice to your students. And I always say, if jiu-jitsu is like this, all you really need is about this much self-defense. If you're a tournament guy, I mean, just start it out and help learn the self-defense, and you'll get a lot of new students that way. I mean, students will come to your school if you will just teach the self-defense principles, and then you can get into the tournament side as well. And I think that's the key to success when you're doing jiu-jitsu, especially. I like to, what I do is I try to, how can I put this, push the envelope a lot on the learning of jiu-jitsu. I like to innovate, and I think it's important, and I think that jiu-jitsu is growing. A lot of people in jiu-jitsu repeat the same 10 years 4 or 5 times, if you know what I'm talking about, right? They learn something for 10 years, and then they just go on and repeat it, and it's stale, and things improve, but yet they won't go and take part in that. And I think that's the disappointing thing, to where I personally like innovation, and I'm trying new things all the time. I mean, like this, for the next 2 months, we're doing leg locks at my school. I just feel it's important that, you got to learn leg locks, because people are learning them already. And if I'm not teaching my students leg locks, how can they defend them? How can they get into that? Right. So I'm really trying to push the envelopes of what to do in a self-defense situation, and also a tournament style. So, 10 years from now, people call me old school, and I tell you, that really just annoys the crap out of me, because I'm not, I understand old school, but I'm always trying to do better and get better. So I feel that's not appropriate to call me old school, but you can call me old, because I mean, and I always believe that jiu-jitsu, I will only accept the finest technique in jiu-jitsu. And I'm a big guy, but I believe that in jiu-jitsu, everybody you grapple is going to be at least 50 pounds heavier than you. Now, that's not true, but we always assume that everybody's going to be 50 pounds heavier than you. And that way, you're not going to use unnecessary muscle or use your natural athletic ability to succeed, that you'll rely on the technique, because jiu-jitsu is made for a small person to defend themselves against a bigger person. And even though I'm a bigger person and I might theoretically be strong, I don't know, I try to not use my natural athletic ability, whatever that is, and my strength. I try to use the technique to find the right angles, manipulate body strength of my opponent, and just and be able to nullify an athletic guy, because that way I can be 80 years, 90 years old and still be able to train jiu-jitsu. I mean, the whole goal is to train jujitsu for life, not just jujitsu in your golden, the golden age. Can't think of the word that I'm looking for. Back in glory days, right? Glory days when you're 30, right? And I just want to say this too. Master Sauer was telling me a story about in Brazil how a lot of black belts, when they're training, they tend to retire at about the age of 40 because they can't they can't continue and keep up with those 21-year-old people because they've been trained to use their natural athletic ability and it's been working for them the whole time. But then they start to lose a step, and that's when the technique of jiu-jitsu, doing everything correctly, putting your hands in the right spot, being perfect every time you grapple, and they lose that step, and so then they decide to retire because they don't want to, they don't want to lose, I guess, or get beaten up on. I'm very proud to be beaten up on. You can try it, and my technique is, though, I really feel like it's getting better with age. It's like a fine wine. It's there, and if you'll just find it, you will have great success with it, so that you really can have jiu-jitsu for life.
Yeah, that reminds me, and I totally agree with you. I think after I turned 40, I had a couple of connective tissue injuries, and it made me more attentive to the facts like, hey, I need to worry about self-preservation here, and I need to provide that security for my students too, so that they can train forever if they want to, so it kind of changed my teaching methodology at that point too, so how I train and how I teach. And I always think about that story, and I'm sure you know about it. I think it was Salo Ribeiro that was rolling with Helio Gracie, and they kind of had this little thing going back and forth where Helio said, we'll roll and you won't be able to tap me out. And they finished up, and Salo was, hey, I did pretty well. And Helio says, yeah, but you never tapped me out. And that was
never
the point.
Tap me out.
It's like, didn't say I was going to tap you out. I said you weren't going to tap me out. Right. And he was like, I think Helio was like 90 years old at the time or something. So, that's a good testament to, that longevity and just being able to, weather the storm and take care of yourself and protect yourself in those situations. And so if you're 90, yeah, that's the idea. I want to do this till I'm 90 and past that too. So, and I'm sure you do too. Let's talk about, let's get into takedowns a little bit. So let's talk particularly about your philosophy and how you approach and how you teach takedowns to your students.
Takedowns are an interesting thing in jiu-jitsu. Again, I'm a Gracie jiu-jitsu guy. That's how I started. And back in the day, I knew that I was going to do this interview. And so I just started thinking about it, right? I started pondering the whole idea of takedowns and throws in jiu-jitsu. And I've come to the realization that, it all centers around Helio Gracie, obviously, right? So, and Helio Gracie was a small man. I think he's 120 pounds, soaking wet, probably smaller than that. And, he found out that what he was doing in his jujitsu that his brother had taught him, it required a lot of physical strength to do. And the takedown part of it is everything was coming from a self-defense background, right? So we're really talking about a street fighting self-defense. We're talking Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. It's a self-defense street fighting kind of methodology. And Helio Gracie found out that sometimes he couldn't take people down. But his thought process was if he could just get a hold of you and hug you, that he would not let go. And he used to say that if you can connect with somebody, whatever you do, do not let go. And hopefully the fight will go to the ground. You take a guy to the ground. Somehow, some way, magically, with his small frame, he was able to trip this guy or take him down, right? So that was how I always learned it. And that's how jiu-jitsu has been progressing for the first, 20 years, because jiu-jitsu's only been around for 35 years, maybe 30 years, of relatively a short period of time. At least it seems to me it's flown by. And so his idea was just get a hold of him and take him down, right? And that's really all you needed to do. And if a dude took him down, well, that's okay, because he got to the ground, was where he wanted to go, right? That's where he found, as a smaller person, that he could defend himself better. So he didn't really care if he got taken down or he tripped this guy or the guy slipped or whatever. He got taken down, right? And I think that's how it got taught for so many years. And I could be wrong. I mean, people could argue about this, I guess, but there wasn't a big need for takedowns, right? In the self-defense aspect, they taught there's probably, I don't know, 10 takedowns that great, they hug to the side, hit, toss, all of those things that traditionally are taught. And there hasn't been a big need for that. Plus, with the fact that I think a lot of jiu-jitsu schools were really small, there weren't a lot of space available in the schools, that starting on your knees was just a really good way to begin. And, and truthfully, I'm going to tell you that starting on your knees, while people make fun of that, it has a real big benefit for a lot of the school owners, because people are hurting their knees, getting their knees broke, and have to have surgery all the time and stuff like that. And they're not running into people. So I think that's a lot of the reason why people start on their knees, for a safety issue. However, having said that, times have changed. We talked about that. Times have changed. And now we're more into the sport aspect of jiu-jitsu. And in the sport aspect, you're going against somebody, your weight class, your belt, he's the same belt, same weight class, with a time limit, for a certain amount of time. And you got to be able to take this guy down, because you can get 2 points if you take this guy down. So the need for takedowns, I think, is more important than when I first started. And so a lot of us, if we're going to call me an old school guy, I think a lot of the old school guys are just they never learned takedowns. They never learned a lot of the throws. And who was teaching it anyway? Judo guys. Well, judo guys, no offense to judo guys, but they have their certain rules, right? That sometimes don't equate to the jiu-jitsu very well, right? And you can't do this takedown. And in jiu-jitsu, it seems like, man, almost anything goes in takedown when you're doing jiu-jitsu, where there's a rule set in judo. So it didn't translate very well. And the jiu-jitsu guys are looking at the judo guys going, yeah, but this, the way we're standing up, we got good posture and everything. And I'm not saying anything about that. I'm just going, it didn't quite translate to the BJJ guys as well. So now we're in a new situation, a new era, where I think, there needs to be a lot. I just wish more jiu-jitsu guys would do more videos and stuff on the whole takedown throw kind of situation in a BJJ context. But what we get is we got a lot of cross-training judo guys that show a few things. And, someone needs to just come up with a really awesome, they probably have, and I just don't know about it, but a really awesome set of jiu-jitsu takedowns that are connected together, so that you go to this, to this, to this, where someone can learn that quickly and easily, efficiently. But I have high hopes that the takedowns are going to start becoming more prevalent in jiu-jitsu. So.
Yeah, that's been one of my own personal projects, is I've been trying to produce videos that actually show, our judo style takedowns, but in a jiu-jitsu setting with jiu-jitsu rules, right? Because in judo, you're supposed to throw the opponent, make them land mostly on their back. That's the kind of the format for it. Jiu-jitsu, you can throw somebody to the ground no matter how they land, as long as you control them for 3 seconds, you get your 2 points. And so I put a big emphasis on that, and then also on thinking of the takedowns and the grappling as not as separate things, but the takedown is a transition, to an advancement of position, right? So I'm going to use this to advance my position and then continue once we get to the ground. So I think there needs to be more education in that area, for sure. I agree with you on that. And I think I'm one of the few guys out there that's trying to do that the right way, because you see a lot of videos of maybe a judo guy showing a throw, and he says it's for jiu-jitsu, but you look at how their stance and how it's done. It's like they don't move that way in jiu-jitsu, and they don't stand that way in jiu-jitsu. You're not going to have the opportunity to do that throw, right? So
you're not going to have an opportunity to do that throw. Exactly. Yeah.
So let's talk about something that you think. Why do you think grapplers today, right, are hesitant to learn takedowns? I mean, because I had two visitors here last night, actually, from out of town, a black belt and a purple belt, and we do our jiu-jitsu class normally, and then at the end of the jiu-jitsu class we have another add-on to it, where we do about 20 minutes of takedowns, right? And again, we're not doing like the traditional Olympic style judo takedowns. We're doing takedowns for jiu-jitsu. They didn't want any part of it. They were like, no, we got to go. We have things to do. It's like, it's 20 minutes. You could stay another 20 minutes and learn this, but they didn't want to do with it. So what do you think that hesitation, where's that come from?
They don't want to look stupid. I mean, I'll tell you, and that brings up a big broader point I want to make here too. People don't want to look stupid, right? And I we were talking about my philosophy of jiu-jitsu. I think not less loss, but we need to have more loss in jiu-jitsu. Like you need to lose a lot more. You need to try new things. You need to work on stuff. And everybody who starts something is a beginner, right? We're all a beginner. And so to have to go and do takedowns, you got to begin. And when you begin, you look stupid, right? And no one wants to look stupid. Um, God knows I've looked stupid a lot. So, I mean, but trying new things is super important. But I think that they're hesitant of that. And, that's why you have somebody who does all the same things when they're grappling, the same moves, over the same old tired crap. They just keep on doing because they got to get a win. And if they try new stuff, it's going to not be as good. And then these people are going to judge me and I'm going to feel my self-esteem is low. And, I tell you, at my school, I try to push everybody to lose as much as they can, take chances, work on stuff, lose as much as they can. I never judge you I will never yell at you for losing. I don't care if you're a brown belt, grappling with a white belt and you get tapped. I don't care because you're probably working on something that you're trying something new. And yeah, this guy catches you in it, and the failure has to be an option. So it's not less failure, it's more failure. And the more you fail, the more you'll start to succeed. And that's the same way with the takedowns. But these guys go and they're going to feel stupid. Maybe they don't know anything. I have guys like I told you earlier that for 2 months we're doing no-gi jiu-jitsu right now because I believe it's important that gi guys do no-gi jiu-jitsu too. I just think it's just super important. I have guys come and visit me and they're like, no-gi, I've never done no-gi before. I mean, I've always done jiu-jitsu in the gi. This no-gi is kind of weird and they don't feel comfortable doing it. And I'm like, really? Like you had never done no-gi jiu-jitsu, really? And see, that's just something that just blows my mind, right? You got to do no-gi and you're gonna suck at it for a while, but pretty soon you're gonna go, wow, this is easy. It's kind of a lot easier than the gi actually. So, I mean, but I get that too, man. I get the no-gi guys coming in or the gi guys going, oh man, I can't do this. Consequently, the no-gi guys are, I'm not putting on a gi. If you tried putting on the gi, you'd have a lot more options and a lot more fun things to do and choking people out. A good experience overall. Learning the totality of jiu-jitsu, right? It's a totality of jiu-jitsu, not just how, I want to, but when we get into this win thing, you're going to stick to what works, what you've always done. It won't go out of your comfort zone. And I just think you're not going to become a master of jiu-jitsu that way. You'll just be a guy in your glory days who won a few matches. And, you were you were the academy champion, you won everybody and that's cool. And what I do at my school is I'm trying to make professors of jiu-jitsu, masters of jiu-jitsu over time, so that when we're all 80 and 90 years old, we can still do jiu-jitsu. I seriously want to do it all of my life. I'm addicted. I don't want to quit. I don't want to retire. And it's the same way with takedowns, right? You got to start somewhere, but you're gonna suck at it when you start out.
Yeah, you kind of have to embrace the suck, and I think I talk to my students often about, if you're going to fail, if you're going to make mistakes inside the dojo while we're training is the best place to do that because we can help fix those mistakes. If we're focused on self-defense, you don't want to make a mistake while you're actually having to defend yourself in a street fight situation, or if you're competing, you don't want to make your mistake in competition, right? You make your mistake here so we can help fix it, right? So people just have to overcome that ego part of it where they're worried about what other people are thinking and just get in there and do it. So I totally agree with you about that. It's kind of their fear of how they're going to look, right? So what advice would you give people in that respect? What advice, let's say for beginners and then also maybe for advanced people, what advice would you give to those guys for that want to learn takedowns?
Well, I think you should, start standing on your feet and give it a try. Like learn the basics, double leg takedown, single leg takedown, start with those. Start with the things that aren't in the gi. If you're going to do the gi, start learning how to break grips. That's the tough part in the gi. Man, they get their hands on you. You can't get them undone. I can't throw anybody. I can't do anything. I'm just super frustrated. They always talk about how grip fighting is the key to success. And I really believe that's true. So, learn those kinds of things. I would just drill your favorite move. Find your favorite takedowns. Find something that you like and just drill the hell out of it. I mean, you don't really have to have 900 moves. I personally think that as a jiu-jitsu guy, because in jiu-jitsu we want to grapple, man. I don't want to be taking people down. I mean, that's the mentality of jiu-jitsu, and I can understand that because I want to grapple too. I don't want to just throw people, right? And that's why I never had a problem with judo, but the judo roast that I throw you, and there's a limited amount of grappling and things like that. Well, we wanted to get into grappling, and so the Elio Gracie thought process of just get a hold of them, don't let go, take them down, and then we start grappling really appealed to a lot of people back in the day. But you got to start somewhere. Just find some things that you want to do, some takedowns, some throws that you want to do, and just practice the crap out of them, right? And then start connecting them together. I personally think, really, you could sit here going, yeah, Keith, I just, this sucks. I don't want to do takedowns or throws or anything like that. Just get 5 takedowns and connect them together, right? This to this to this to this to this, and practice a series that you can do that that you're going to be able to get one day. And just 5. I mean, if that's all you ever did was like a 5, I'm just making that up. I don't know, 6, 4, whatever that you think that that you want to do, go ahead and do it right. And if you I love doing these throws and takedowns, great. Learn the whole thing. Get a black belt in judo. It's, it doesn't hurt you at all. And wrestlers have a lot of takedowns already when they come to jiu-jitsu. So, I feel they have a leg up on the regular jiu-jitsu guy with their takedowns already. But that's neither here nor there. You got to learn sometime, and the best thing to do. And it's so a guy takes you down. Let's say a guy takes you down. Well, okay, we're grappling now, so it's time to grapple. So I think you'll get your way, regardless of whether you take him down or he takes you down. You're going to get your way. Just don't get injured. That's the key. Safety, man. But again, connect them together, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's good to have just a few throws in your arsenal. I think people sometimes that's part of what discourages them, is they think they've got to, if they're going to learn takedowns, they got to learn every takedown that a black belt in judo knows, or every takedown that a wrestler knows. Like, no, you just need to have like 3 or 4 things that you can do.
Yeah.
And then connect them to the ground stuff that you like to do too. Like how do I use this to transition into the favorite thing I like to do on the ground, right? So yeah. I think once they start connecting those dots, and then look at the principles is another thing that I teach a lot too. Like the principles that we apply on the ground also apply in the stand-up. You just have a higher center of gravity, like a scissor sweep is the same kind of off balancing and making somebody fall to their back. And it's kind of the same thing when we do a throw from standing as well, really similar in nature. So I think once they connect those dots, I think it's a little bit easier for them. I don't think there's a lot of incentive for people to learn takedowns for modern jiu-jitsu rules either. It's only worth 2 points, and it takes a lot of work to do a takedown as compared to going from side control to the mount and getting 4 points for that. So it's
sitting on your ass.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
home guard.
Yep, I totally agree.
Just makes it easy.
It is, yeah. And taking the easier route, and I think that if you notice, and I've pointed this out a couple times here recently to my students, if you're watching the EBI, like Eddie Bravo's Invitational, if you watch the regular one versus the combat jiu-jitsu version, the combat jiu-jitsu guys work a lot harder for the takedown because they want to be on top because of the strikes that are involved, right? So I think there's a self-defense aspect in that too, as far as like combat jiu-jitsu, MMA, self-defense, it's kind of in your best interest to be on top in those cases as much as possible. So
yeah. And when you take someone down, you get 2 points. You typically end up on top. Man, you can sit and rest, collect yourself. 2 points, I think, is a lot of points, man. When you're when you're on top of somebody and you got a certain amount of time, and I'm not saying stall or anything like that, but geez, I'd like to have 2 points in my bank account when we're at a tournament. I think I don't want to be 2 points behind, so I got to work harder when I'm 2 points behind.
Yeah, I agree. And you're building momentum, right? You already have momentum at that point, and you're getting that winning process going on. Let's talk about your book. I ordered your book. I haven't gotten it yet, but I'm really looking forward to it. I'm familiar with it. From the ground
this
up.
Book?
That one right there. Yep. Hey. That one, that's mine. You're supposed to send that to me right now.
On this way. No, it's
okay.
It's on this way.
Let's talk a little bit about your book. What inspired you to write the book, and just tell us about the book.
Well, I wanted to write a book. I'm in the process, and one day I'm going to finish all this. But I wanted to write a book for beginners, for intermediate, for advanced people, and then for instructors, right? I wanted to be a 4-book series. And this is the first book that I wrote. And I want to tell you, it's incredibly hard writing a book. If you've written a book, I'm sure that you understand that it's a lot of work. Man, when I got it back from the editor, all these red marks were all over. My punctuation sucks. I am the master. I believe I am a professor of the run-on sentence, and so it's just a lot of work. And and the work that you have to go through is a lot. But I really felt that it was important for beginners, because I wanted to write this book for beginners, because so many people start jujitsu. This is the sad thing for me personally, is that so many people start jujitsu. How does this go? The first day you come in, they probably teach you to stand up and base, I bet. They teach you another move. And if you go to a sports school, they're working on De La Hiva guard or something, X guard. And this guy doesn't know anything about, or gal doesn't know anything about jujitsu. And they're already working something super hard. And then all of a sudden, okay, it's time to grapple, everybody. We're, get a partner, right? And then they proceed to get the crap kicked out of them in the school, and they don't have no idea how to do jujitsu. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know the gold. What's a guard? I don't know, right? But the students just want, a lot of schools, unfortunately, the students just wants to beat up on somebody, right? That white belt gets a chance to beat up on somebody newer than them, and they beat the heck out of this person, and that person walks out of that going, I don't want any part of that. I was totally frightened. I was totally scared. I got beat up. And how can we teach weak people to become strong when we kick the living dog crap out of them right off the first class? It makes no sense to me. But that is the culture of jiu-jitsu. That's how I started, man. I got beat up. And I got tapped out by a girl the very first time I did jiu-jitsu, as a matter of fact. She's a blue belt. She armbarred me right off the bat. And most guys would go, like, get their feelings all hurt, and they would, right. And I said, oh my God, if she can do that, wait till I'm doing that kind of stuff. And so that was exciting for me, but not everybody's crazy like you and I, right? I mean, we're crazy guys. We just like getting beat up, right? And we got to change that culture, because, the most popular martial art, I think, in the world today, and you can argue with me about this if you'd like, is Taekwondo. And I personally believe that Taekwondo doesn't offer the same kind of self-defense benefits that a jiu-jitsu would, especially for the ladies, right? But we can't offer we can't offer those things if we can't get people to stay into jiu-jitsu. So, to make a long story even longer, I wrote this book so that a brand new person would read it and understand the culture of what they're looking at and how to navigate through all those problems. And I talk about it in 4 ways: physical, mental, emotional, and then I added one more: political aspects of the school that you're training at, because I don't know what school you're training at. And this book doesn't necessarily reflect my school, but it reflects a lot of the schools, and it just helps a brand new person to navigate, understand what they're going through. And the political side of it is the pecking order, right? How to get through it so you're liked in the school, all right? Because it's super important. It's super important to be liked in your jiu-jitsu school when you're a brand new person, because when you're hated, you tend to get beat up more and people ignore you more, and we want to be liked, right? And so I give a blueprint, if you will, of how to accomplish that. And your master, Carlos Machado, read my book and gave me a nice review about it. And he thought it was a very good book, if I can just flex for a moment. And he contacted me out of the blue and told me how much he liked my book. And it was like, I believe personally, a black belt. I've had lots of black belts email me and call me and tell me, I got a lot out of your book. I learned a lot, because it's just about understanding the culture of jiu-jitsu. And I personally think the culture needs to change. And this is my effort to help people change that culture. I know I've changed it in my school. Again, I want people to lose, please. I don't want people to grapple right off the bat. If you're brand new, you don't have to grapple right off the bat. You can work your way into it and not get injured and have a good time. There's a couple different ways to teach people to swim. We can throw them in the water, or we can wade in the water with them with their little floaties and help them to swim, right? And they go, oh, I'm getting the hang of this, and they start to dog paddle, and then pretty soon, they're doing Olympic swimming, I guess, And that's kind of what we want to do. And that's what I want to do in jiu-jitsu. And at my school, I have about 275 students at my school. So it's what I'm doing is really working out. We get lots of new people all the time. I have a lot of ladies, and I have an exceptional amount of pride in teaching the ladies jiu-jitsu because they have no upper body strength, right? Ladies, the only downside to a lady is no upper body strength. Everything else, they're emotionally strong, mentally strong, but they just don't have that upper body strength that men have, and they have to use their legs, and jiu-jitsu works for them, but they need time to get good and helped along the way so that, and then one day they're just kicking the crap out of men, just like I got tapped right up the very first time. And that has always stuck with me. And I'm glad she did that because that made me learn that, wow, this jiu-jitsu stuff will actually work in a self-defense situation. But the problem is we just have to, work our way into it. I just want to add one more thing. If you and I were going to go weightlift, all right, like, I'm not big on weightlifting, but if we go and weightlift, right, we're going to go take get some personal training, right? We got our personal trainer there, and we walk in, and you and I are there. Larry, it's time to go and weightlift. He goes, okay, here's what's going to happen, guys. You're going to weightlift today, 300 pounds. All right, you're going to bench press 300 pounds. And I'm going to be like, 300 pounds is a worthy goal. I really believe that, right? But can I start out with like 25 or something like that? I mean, I need 50 pounds, and I'll work my way. Oh, you got this. Don't worry about it. You can do the 300 pounds, right? And of course, you probably can do this. Me, I can't do 300 pounds, right? I'm just gonna let you know a little secret. I cannot bench press 300 pounds, right? And so I'm going to fail miserably at it. And when I fail miserably at it, then I'm not going to like weightlifting, right? And if you'd just gotten me started and we worked 5 pounds a week, started working our way up to it, right? Whatever it is, 5, 10 pounds, I don't know. Oh, God, success. And then, man, I'm all buff and everything, and I like weightlifting, and I'm into it now instead of just wrecking my whole life by making me bench something that I'm going to fail miserably at. And that's what I think we're setting our students up for when we just throw them in.
Yeah, I agree. Earlier we talked about how failing is important, because we learn from it, but successes are important too. The students have to have little successes to want to, continue moving forward.
Right.
And part of that is, we have to teach people how to view failure, as a learning process, and understand that you're not going to become a master overnight. A lot of people, I think, get that misconception too. It's like they think of the Rocky montage or something. It's like, okay, all I have to do is show up, and then all of a sudden I know stuff, but no, it takes a long time to do it. There's going to be a lot of failures, but we need to set them up for success as well. And I like that. And, that's part of the culture, I think, that needs to change in a lot of jiu-jitsu schools. That I see sometimes, and you've seen it before too, and I've heard you talk about, people quitting at blue belt. And I talk about that frequently too. But whenever I see that, sometimes I'll see the meme on social media or whatever, where they do the statistics and say, only so many people make it to blue belt, and only so many people make it, past blue belt to purple belt. And sometimes those academies put it up there like it's some kind of badge of honor. And when I see that, I say, no, that's us failing as an instructor, right? If you have that kind of a dropout rate, you're failing as an instructor. You need to create a better culture in your academy so that you're not having that happen, right? That means
exactly.
You're beating them up when they come in the door, and why would they want to stay?
Right. I want to make this point though, so that you understand, because someone listening to this might think, oh yeah, you're just trying to make it easy and just give away belts and things like that just to make it easy so people can climb the ladder. I'm going to tell you this right now. I believe when you are a black belt in jiu-jitsu, that you are one badass woman or man, all right, that you are able to defend yourself technically, world-class level. I'm telling you, master of jiu-jitsu, okay? If I have to give away a belt, if I have to have black belts that are not up to the task of being a black belt, you need to be really awesome. And I believe a level needs to be kept there. And I believe 10 years of going and learning to be a black belt. I hear people now it's 8 and 7 and 6 and 5. And I understand with jiu-jitsu videos and everything, you can learn quicker. But I think to be a master, you need to have that amount of time. And I will never, I'm telling you right now, I will never give away a black belt. If you can't earn it, you're not going to get it. And so I want to have world-class black belts, okay? At the same time, I just want brand new people to be able to get in easier, to get them going towards black belt. That's all I'm saying to you. It's not the ending that I want to change it all. I want everyone to climb Mount Everest, right? Everest is a pretty good example of this. And I say this to people. You know, when Edmund Hillary climbed Everest, I think it was pretty freaking hard. Okay, he didn't have anything. He had to do it on his own. He and his Sherpa had to, do it on their own, figure it out, right? But now today, when we're climbing Everest, there are ladders in place, and there are, ropes in place, and there's the Khumbu icefall where people could die, and they know how to navigate this, right? But when you get to the top of Everest, did you not climb Everest? I mean, it was hard for you as a personal hardship, but yet the people who came before you really helped you out to be able to achieve your being able to climb Everest. And I got to tell you, more people have climbed Everest, great. But when we talk about the population as a whole compared to who's climbed Everest, it's super small. I mean, you know what I'm saying? But it's just become a little easier to make that climb, but no less difficult. I'm going to tell you, I mean, you can freeze your butt off and die up there in the death zone, And so that's what I want to make jiu-jitsu, right? We're still climbing Everest, right? I mean, but I just want to make it easier for that person, that newer person, to be able to get going and become acclimatized to do it, instead of going, yeah, I can't do this, and then leave, right? My goal is to spread jiu-jitsu to the world, and I can't do that if we're just kicking the crap out of everybody and the tough guys stick around and nobody else, right? It's just a sport for tough guys starting out, and that's it. It's no good, right? The technique, I take weak people and make them technical. I didn't say strong. I mean, emotionally strong, but physically strong. I make them technical, and that's what Elio Gracie's vision, I think, was as a small person to be able to defend yourself against bigger, stronger people. Well, you're going to do that. You might want to start out slowly and work your way up to it.
Yeah, definitely. I think, and you mentioned that you've got a pretty good female population in your academy. We do too. We're about 50% female here. And
oh, wow.
That's something that we pride ourselves on. And we have to make it an environment where they can thrive and not just get thrashed on by people, or treated badly, emotionally and that type of thing too. We want it to be an environment where everybody feels welcome, and I think it's kind of cliche to say that, but really that's what we try to do. We want it to be an environment where everybody feels welcome, and it's not for everybody. We say jiu-jitsu is for everybody, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes there are something as an instructor, I'm sure you've had to go through this before. Not everybody's going to make it to black belt.
Yep, not everybody's. And you don't want everybody to become a black belt. That's not the point. But we want to make it easier for people who do want to become black belt to not get the heck kicked out of them right off the bat and demoralized when they could have been a great black belt one day.
Yep, exactly. So we are running down on our time right here. I want to talk about you and your mission. What do you want to share with the audience here, and how would people get a hold of you and find out more about you?
Well, you can find me on Facebook. I'm always on Facebook all the time, Instagram, those things. I live in Boise, Idaho, in a little town called Meridian, Idaho, right outside of Boise. If you're ever in the Boise area, please come and visit me. I'm doing a brand new program that's going to be launching pretty soon called Ground Control Certified. And Ground Control Certified, what's going to happen is I'm going to work with stand-up martial arts schools to be able to do jiu-jitsu in their programs as well. So that's going to be hitting in the next couple months. Something that I'm pretty serious about. We're still going to have our regular jiu-jitsu affiliates. A lot of stand-up martial arts schools would like to do jiu-jitsu as well in their stand-up karate, taekwondo programs and everything like that. They just don't have an outlet or an ability, or they can't go across the street to the jiu-jitsu school and go, hey, I'd like to take your curriculum and put it into mine. So we're going to be launching Ground Control Certified here pretty soon. I'm not giving many details about it, but people just stay tuned. They're going to see what's about to happen. So really excited about it too. I'm spreading jiu-jitsu to the world. That is my goal.
Awesome. Is there a link or anything like that you'd like to share with the audience as far as that's concerned, or anything else, like to your book or to your website?
Well, if you'd like my book from the ground up, you can go to teamrhinobjj.com, teamrhinobjj.com, and you can order it from right there. If you're interested in becoming a Keith Owen affiliate, people can certainly try to do that. again, failure is an option. So if you're somebody who wants to do jiu-jitsu but doesn't want to have the stress that comes with having to win all the time, Team Rhino is a really good. I want to brag. I feel that Team Rhino is a really kind of world-class association for that, to be able to help spread jiu-jitsu, and be able to make a living at it too. I mean, I want all my affiliates to be able to make a living teaching jiu-jitsu, because we're not just doing something fun. We're on a mission to change people's lives through jiu-jitsu. Like, that girl changed my life when she armbarred me, made me realize, wow, this martial art is for real. This is real deal here. Jiu-jitsu is not, you can't lie. You hear that all the time. In jiu-jitsu, you can't lie. And the more I can get people to be able to defend themselves on the ground. I taught at the police academy here in Idaho for about 10 years. I've had numerous police officers tell me that what I've taught them has saved their life. And that is the mission that I'm on. You got to do something with your life, right? And then my mission is to keep spreading jiu-jitsu, just like Master Sauer has been spreading it. So I'm taking up that mantle, and it all begins with my book, and you're going to see Ground Control Certified here in about the next 6 months launch. So I'm really excited about that.
Awesome. And for our audience, that there's a link attached to this video. And also, if you're looking for lifetime access to this interview and other interviews, be sure to, sign up for the full access pass. And I want to thank you, Professor Keith Owen, for being with us today. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I know a lot of our philosophies really parallel, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted you on this program, because I've been, like I said, observing you, watching you, from a distance on social media for quite some time, YouTube videos and that type of thing. So, and mostly not just the techniques that you teach, but the speeches that I see you give in some of those videos have an impact as well. And so that's one of the main reasons why I wanted you on here. So thank you for being with us.
The theory of jiu-jitsu, that's important too. So
absolutely,
I appreciate you saying that. Thank you very much.
So thank you for being with us. And until next time, we'll see you soon.
Work on your takedowns.